I'm an ordinary man in my late 30s working at a securities firm. Marriage, that was a word I never imagined would be part of my life. But one day, a woman I met by chance completely turned my world upside down. What I thought was love something worth risking everything for turned out to be a deadly trap that dragged me into an abyss. I realized it too late. After hearing my story, you'll understand how trying to take responsibility for the wrong woman can ruin your life in the blink of an eye. I never had much interest in marriage. I'm on the lean side, sometimes looking like a shirt draped on a hanger, but my personality is proactive and I'm highly dedicated to my work. At the company, I was well regarded. My specialty was analyzing market trends and wrestling with numbers at my securities firm. I'd spend hours in front of monitors studying charts and recommending stocks to clients, feeling a rush of excitement whenever I helped them profit. As my career progressed, my salary steadily grew, and through investments and stock trading, I accumulated a substantial sum for my age. On weekends, I'd sit at a nearby cafe with a cup of coffee, watching people pass by, enjoying my solitude. I had seen too many married couples fighting, so living alone seemed far more peaceful and comfortable. Honestly, I found my job too fascinating. Analyzing numbers and markets to achieve precise results felt as rewarding as solving a complex puzzle. Then one day a coworker got married. He had always been a talkative and cheerful guy, but after marriage, he couldn't stop bragging about his newlywed life. During lunch breaks, sitting in the corner of the office with his coffee mug, he'd say things like, "Starting the day with coffee. My wife brewed for me. You've got to experience that, man." Or, "We went to the beach last weekend and ate fresh seafood by the water. It felt like real happiness, you know." At first, I brushed it off, but his words lingered in my mind. In the photos he showed me, he and his wife were beaming with the sun setting over the ocean behind them. Looking at those pictures, my belief that marriage was bound to be miserable started to crack. I began to think that maybe if I found the right person, I could be that happy too. And then it happened completely by chance. For years, I'd been going to the same small hair salon near my company. The sign outside was a bit faded, but inside, the warm lighting and faint scent of shampoo made it feel welcoming. Among the staff was a female hairdresser with a bright and cheerful personality who always engaged customers with jokes and light-hearted conversation. She was petite with shoulder-length hair swept to the side and her eyes curved into crescent moons when she smiled. One day, while getting a haircut, she started chatting as usual. "Have you heard of that new Italian restaurant nearby? Their pasta is amazing. I highly recommend it." Her voice was so lively and her hand gestures so animated that I found myself curious about the place. Without much thought, I casually replied, "Sounds good, I should try it sometime." It was just small talk to keep the conversation going, but she suddenly paused, looked at me through the mirror, and smiled. "I'm finishing work early today. Want to go together?" My mind went blank for a moment, my heart thudded hard in my chest. Caught off guard, I stammered, "Oh, what?" She chuckled and added, "Seriously, it's fine. I was going to go alone anyway." I tried to think of a reason to decline, but before I knew it, I found myself saying, "Sure, why not?" Later that evening, I waited outside the salon after my haircut. When she stepped out, having swapped her apron for jeans and a cozy sweater, she looked refreshingly different. We walked side by side down the street toward the restaurant, the breeze carrying a faint hint of her shampoo. Somehow the tension in my chest eased, replaced by a subtle sense of excitement. The restaurant had a warm atmosphere, soft lighting, and the aroma of oregano filled the air, and the candlelit tables added to the cozy ambiance. Seeing her outside of work without her apron and scissors revealed a different kind of charm. She flipped through the menu, her eyes sparkling as she said, "You've got to try their cream pasta. It's incredibly rich and creamy." Her enthusiasm was infectious, and I smiled as I replied, "Then let's go with that." Over dinner, the conversation flowed effortlessly. With her knack for engaging people, she shared amusing stories from the salon. Last week, a guy asked me to work magic on his thinning hair. I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing, she giggled, and I found myself laughing along with her. Our banter was so natural and fun that time seemed to fly by. At that point, I hadn't thought of her romantically, just a friendly dinner, nothing more. But after we finished our pasta and ordered a glass of wine each, the atmosphere began to shift. When the meal ended, she suggested, "There's a nice bar nearby. Want to grab another drink?" I agreed without hesitation, and we found a cozy spot tucked between narrow alleys. Inside, the wooden bar counter, dim lighting, and vintage LP records on the walls created a warm, intimate vibe. With wine glasses in hand, our conversation grew deeper, and I lost track of how much I'd had to drink. My face felt warm, my senses slightly dulled, and her eyes seemed to shine even brighter in the dim light. At one point, her hand brushed against mine under the table, and she murmured, "Tonight's been really fun." My heart pounded in my chest. The details after that are a bit hazy, but somehow we ended up at a hotel together. To be honest, that night was incredible. The city lights shimmering through the hotel window cast a soft glow across the room, and as soon as she locked the door, she pulled me into her arms without hesitation. Her passion and confidence, honed from years of interacting with people, translated seamlessly into the bedroom. As our breathing grew heavier and our bodies intertwined, the heat of our skin and the intensity of the moment made the world outside fade away. It felt like pure primal attraction, and I surrendered to it completely. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the curtains, pulling me from sleep. My head ached slightly from the wine, and beside me she lay sleeping, her shoulder peeking out from beneath the sheets. The memories of the night before flooded back, and a confusing mix of emotions washed over me. I couldn't help but wonder, what now? Was this just a one-night fling, or should I take responsibility since things went that far? My traditional mindset whispered that a man should step up after such intimacy, and from that moment my thoughts grew increasingly tangled. We continued seeing each other for the next few months, movie dates, eating fried chicken by the river, and sharing passionate nights whenever the mood struck. One evening, sitting on a bench by the Han River as the sunset painted the water gold, I broached the topic of marriage. What if we start thinking seriously about marriage? Her reaction was hesitant. She glanced away and replied, I'll think about it." Her reluctance was clear. Then, one night after a few drinks, I blurted out, "I could help you open your own salon, you know." Her eyes lit up instantly. "Really? Then I definitely want to marry you," she replied without hesitation. At the time, I wasn't sure if it was genuine or if she was swayed by the idea of owning a salon. Still, her enthusiastic reaction gave me hope that things were falling into place. When I introduced her to my parents, my mom pulled me aside afterward and said, "I'm sorry, but she doesn't seem very sincere or respectful. And honestly, I don't think she loves you that much. Are you sure about this?" Her words weighed heavily on my heart, but I brushed them aside, determined to prove my love. "Mom, please don't say that. I'll make sure both of you are happy. Just trust me." Looking back, I wish I had listened to her. That moment might have been the turning point of my life. We held a beautiful wedding under the clear late summer sky. My wife looked stunning in her white dress as she walked toward me, and for that moment, everything felt perfect. Our honeymoon in the Maldives was like a dream, sipping coffee in an overwater bungalow each morning and sharing laughs over beers beneath a star-studded sky at night. Back then, I truly believed a happy life awaited us. I used most of my savings to open the salon she had always wanted right near the subway station, where foot traffic was high. The salon's large glass windows caught the eyes of passers-by, and I spared no expense on the sleek white interior, warm amber lighting, and stylish leather chairs. Her name was proudly displayed on the sign outside. Setting everything up, from the wedding to the salon, drained my savings faster than I'd anticipated. But I convinced myself it was worth it for our future together. At first, customers trickled in slowly. My wife reassured me. Word of mouth takes time, but I couldn't shake my anxiety. I started using my salary to cover the salon's rent and expenses. Back when I lived alone, my paycheck piled up quickly, but now, between supporting the salon and covering living costs, my account balance dwindled. Still, I pushed forward, determined not to give up. I worked harder than ever at the office, pulling late nights and even working weekends to create customized investment proposals for clients. I also suggested social media ads for the salon and handed out flyers at local cafes. Slowly, business picked up, calls for appointments increased, and customers began waiting their turn. Encouraged by this progress, my wife hired 2 additional stylists. The salon buzzed with activity, and I finally felt a sense of relief. Maybe things were going to be okay after all. But that peace didn't last long. At home, my wife was constantly glued to her phone, laughing at the screen or muttering, "Ugh, so annoying." She frequently took calls, brushing off my curiosity with, "I'm coordinating appointments and checking in with the staff." Her casual tone seemed believable, so I pushed aside any doubts. Then, one night after working late, I passed by the salon on my way home and noticed the lights were off, even though it wasn't a scheduled day off. I called her and she answered, "I'm busy, right? Now, what's up?" I mentioned that I was nearby and could drop in, but she hesitated before saying, "I'm out with the staff, just head home." But the dark, empty salon told a different story. For the first time, suspicion crept into my mind. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Unable to ignore the nagging doubts, I asked a trusted acquaintance to take a temporary job at the salon to observe discreetly. A few days later, my contact called me, his voice serious. "Hey, I think something's up between your wife and that male stylist. I've seen them exchange looks when no one's around. And yesterday, while drying a customer's hair, their hands brushed, and it looked intentional." My heart pounded in my chest, but his next words hit me like a punch to the gut. "Last night, I went to the restroom after closing and overheard sounds coming from the break room. When I peeked through the gap, I saw your wife and that guy you know doing that." The world seemed to tilt beneath me. My mind went blank, my vision blurred, and a wave of nausea hit my stomach. Even so, I needed solid proof before confronting her. My acquaintance gathered more evidence: photos, recorded conversations, and a voice recording of my wife flirting with the stylist. When he handed me the evidence, he said, "Sorry, man, I can't keep working there. It's too messed up." That night, I waited until my wife returned home and sat her down. "I know you're cheating." "It's over," I said, showing her the evidence. Her eyes flared with anger. "What the hell? You spied on me?" she shouted. I apologized for invading her privacy, but pleaded, "If you want to make things right, fire that guy and prove I can trust you again." After a long stare down, she finally said, "Fine," and let him go. At home, she seemed to use her phone less, and I convinced myself that things were getting better. I chose to forgive her, hoping we could rebuild our marriage. For about a year, life settled into a routine. Each morning, I'd text her, "Have a great day at work," and she'd reply with a smile emoji. We even discussed having a child, thinking it might strengthen our bond. One night, lying in bed, I asked softly, "What if we had a baby?" She held my hand and replied, "Let's wait just a little longer." Though it didn't happen, we consoled each other, deciding not to rush. I occasionally dropped by the salon after work, watching her laugh with customers, and felt reassured that we were moving in the right direction. Then one afternoon, a coworker casually remarked, "Hey, isn't there a scandal going on with a salon in your neighborhood? It's all over the internet." My stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" I asked. He scrolled through his phone, then handed it to me. The moment I read the post, my blood turned cold. The author was none other than the stylist my wife had fired. His detailed account read like a movie script. I worked at a salon where I became romantically involved with the married owner. Her husband caught us by planting a spy, so I had to leave. But we secretly kept seeing each other until she started sleeping with one of her regular customers. She even got pregnant, but the guy refused to take responsibility. She begged me to accompany her to the clinic because she was scared. This woman is completely insane. I'm posting this so her husband will find out the truth. The salon's near station, so guys, be careful if you go there. I felt like the floor had vanished beneath me. My hands trembled as I gripped the phone. So, even after firing that stylist, she'd continued the affair, and worse, she'd had another fling that resulted in pregnancy. The post had already gone viral with tens of thousands of views and hundreds of comments. Some warned others to avoid the salon, while others joked crudely about booking appointments for more than just a haircut. Someone had even dug up my wife's social media photos and shared them online. That night, I confronted her as soon as I stepped through the door. "Is it true?" I demanded, holding up my phone. She froze, holding a ladle of instant ramen, and tried to brush it off. "That's just some troll making stuff up. Don't believe it." But I pressed, my voice low and firm. "Stop lying. I know everything." Tears welled up in her eyes as she finally confessed, "I'm sorry I kept seeing him, but it's over now. The other guy was a mistake. I did get pregnant, but he disappeared. I didn't know what to do." Her shoulders shook as she cried, but I felt no anger, only an overwhelming sense of emptiness. The next morning, I filed for divorce. I gathered all the evidence, photos, recordings, call logs, and submitted them to my lawyer. The solid proof worked in my favor during the court proceedings. Despite losing most of my savings to the salon, I retained ownership of both the apartment and the salon property. Fortunately, we had no children, which made the process cleaner. I gave her time to vacate the salon, but her downfall was swift. After the online scandal, customers vanished overnight. Employees quit, unable to handle the gossip, and the salon's reputation was beyond repair. Even the shop's windows were vandalized. Someone spray painted homewrecker in red across the glass. One night she called me in tears, begging, "Please help me. I've lost everything," but I coldly replied, "You made your choices. Deal with the consequences." I eventually sold the salon space. Ironically, the buyer turned it into a coffee shop and capitalized on the scandal. They named it Cheater's Coffee, with signature drinks like the Affair Latte and Betrayal Espresso. Even the coffee sleeves had cheeky phrases like "get your caffeine fix" instead of cheating. The shop quickly became a social media sensation, with customers lining up to snap photos of the neon sign inside Cheater's Coffee, the only affair you'll regret. Every time I passed by, hearing laughter and smelling freshly brewed coffee, I couldn't help but smirk at the twisted irony. As for my ex-wife, her ex-lover didn't stop at one post, he leaked private texts, compromising photos and voice recordings where she begged him, "Please, leave your girlfriend. I'll leave my husband too." With her reputation in tatters, she had no choice but to leave town. I heard she moved to another city, but by then I no longer cared. Today, I live alone in a new apartment, having rebuilt my life from the ground up. I've been promoted at work, my savings are growing again, and I've resumed investing with promising returns so far. Occasionally, I pass by Cheater's Coffee, watching customers sip lattes and snap photos under the glowing neon sign. The irony of that space's transformation perfectly mirrors my life rising stronger from the wreckage of betrayal. Looking back, I should have seen the warning signs during that first dinner. Her easy charm, her comfort with strangers' traits I initially found attractive were red flags I chose to ignore. Perhaps that empty pasta plate and the hotel room that followed set the course for everything that came after. But now I know real love isn't supposed to hurt like this. So if you take anything from my story, let it be this: don't mistake infatuation for love. Learn to recognize the difference before it's too late. Thank you for listening to my story.